Okay, perfect.
Yeah. I'm just gonna leave it like this. Hello.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
We'll wait a few more minutes for our next guest to arrive, and then we'll get started. Okay, well, we don't want to take up too much of y'all's time. We know you're busy professionals out in the working world. So let's go ahead and get started and hope that Erin can join us in a few more minutes. So I want to say welcome to everyone that's joining us today for our FabFems Friday webinar. Today, our focus is on STEM in medical technology specifically. We have a fabulous lineup throughout June and July, and we hope you can join us weekly for panel discussions with current students, alumni, and STEM role models from our community. My name is Jillian Albus, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm with Women in STEM within the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement at the University of Texas at Austin. We also have Emily Mercado here assisting us and monitoring the chat. And today we also have our lovely panelists and those helping us with the Q&A portion of our webinar, like I mentioned earlier. So you can find many of our FabFems Friday webinar panelists and more amazing STEM role models in our FabFems directory. You see it here on your screen. It's a national database of women in science, technology, engineering, and math professions who are inspiring role models for young women. The FabFems directory is managed by the National Girls Collaborative Project and is designed to help increase career awareness and interest in STEM. STEM role models can create a FabFems profile and indicate how you want to be connected, either just serving as a role model with your profile online so students can read more about your experiences, or volunteering to be contacted via email or other options. Students, you can search for a keyword or a variety of factors such as zip code, field of work, ethnicity, or interest of engineering or other STEM factors. And there are lots of options available to you. So Emily's going to drop the link to this directory in the chat for you to check out. We also have a wonderful YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out yet, we encourage you to do so. Emily will drop that link as well in the chat for you to access. But we have been adding all of our FabFems Friday webinars to our WiSTEM YouTube channel, and as well as other videos to help future and current students. So you can access that at any point and access all those recordings and come back to them if you heard something particularly interesting during our discussion today or for a webinar in the future. But we encourage you to check that out and subscribe to the channel to get notified when those new videos are added. Okay, so today, like I mentioned earlier, our focus is STEM in medical technology. We will have each panelist share some quick introductions here in a moment to get us started. And then after those introductions, we'll have a facilitated panel with some pre-selected questions. And then we'll also be taking questions from you via the Q&A area on your screen to submit. So you can go ahead and submit your questions at any point during the webinar, and we'll address those towards the end of our session here today. So quick introduction time. If our panelists don't mind sharing your name, pronouns, your hometown, and the major or degree that you received, the year in school or your company or organization, and any hobbies or outside activities that you like to participate in outside of work or whatever it might be.
Who would you like to go first? So I volunteer. All right, so my name is Jenny Finkbeiner. I'm looking at my notes to remind me what I'm supposed to say here. So Jenny Finkbeiner, she, her are my pronouns. My hometown is a very small town called Sullivan in Indiana. So I'm a Midwest girl originally. I actually got my undergraduate degree at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology in Applied Biology and Biochemical Engineering. But I did get my master's at UT in Austin in the engineering management program, which was amazing for anybody thinking about what they're doing after their bachelor's. It was just such a great program. All right, what was my next one? Hobbies out. Oh, how long have I been? So I'm at Stryker Orthotics currently. I've been there for almost 11 years. Prior to that, I was with a couple other medical device pharma companies. So I've been in the industry for about 20 years now, which is just crazy to me. Like just learning how to adult. So I don't know how 20 years has passed. It just so you all know that happened. And then what do I like to do outside of work? Family loves to mountain bike. I love anything being outside. I currently live in San Antonio, Texas. So we live outside all of the time. When it's hot like this, we try to get around the water, but mountain biking is probably the tops for the family. So I think I covered everything for my intro. Cool.
I can go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Clayton Benson. I'm from and currently live in Fort Worth, Texas. I did UT Mechanical Engineering, graduated in 2019, and then I got my master's of Prosthetics and Orthotics from UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas in 2021. And so I've been in my company for about 1.5 years now, working as a O&P resident. For fun outside of work, I like cooking, crafting. I just started a scrapbook, so that's been pretty fun.
All right, so that's me. Hi, I'm Erin Lynn, she, her pronouns for me. So I currently live in Pflugerville, Texas, but I also grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, but I've been, I don't know how long I've been in Texas, a while. So I went to UT and I got my bachelor's in biomedical engineering. And I have worked for GE Healthcare for the entirety of my career, going on 14 years now. What else? So outside of work, I like to play with my kids. Right now it's summertime. We like to play in the pool because it's super hot. And then, just for me, I like to escape and go to yoga class when I can. So I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have all of you all here today. So let's go ahead and get started with our discussion then. We want to hear a little bit more about each of your career paths and how you chose your major in college and then how you got to your current position.
You want us to go in the same order to make it easy for you? All right, perfect. So I actually co-op with Pfizer all through college and spent my time first in their engineering department, but then in their quality group, which was fabulous. But I learned that I did not want to be a quality engineer by the time that I graduated. So after that, I took a role at a company called Southwest Research Institute. I was a scientist in the lab doing microencapsulation and biochemical or biomaterials development work for different industries. So they did like contract research and development. So we got to get exposure to all different kinds of companies and technologies. And that was a really, really great place to start coming right out of college. And then I had a really fabulous manager. So most of my career has been following managers around. Somehow that tends to happen. You find really good leaders and they recognize you and you kind of end up following where they go. That makes for good career progression if you get lucky enough to find managers and mentors. Anyway, so I followed him to a company called KCI that did wound care, advanced wound care development. And I was again in the lab doing development work for advanced wound dressings. And at that time, I kind of realized that I was probably better at organizing work than I was at actually getting the very detailed work done. So that was my first foray into thinking that I might do project management. So on the technical side, I did kind of when you're in a medical device company, you either stay very technical and you do the engineering work, or you continue down a path of doing the project management work and a technical lead or product development, project management work. So I did that for a few years and then went and got my master's at UT in engineering management and really specialized in project management, got my PMP, and then became a program manager for all of our new product development for not all of them. There were a lot of us, but for several new product development projects within KCI. They had a lot of changes that happened at that company. And so that kind of sent me on my first search. And I had again, another prior manager, VP, that reached out to me that was with Stryker in California for a project management position out there for their new product development work. So I moved from Texas to California at that time and worked out there for 3 years, managing new projects related to patient-specific implants and cutting guides for orthopedics. So that was like a very big change for me because it was software project management. It was in orthopedics, so it was learning all new technology, which was very different than the wound care environment that I had. So lots of things to learn. I'm a big learner. I love continuing education, so that was a really big change for me. Unfortunately, the company, or I guess the office that I was at in California, closed after about 3 years out there. But they did ask me to work remote from California with our New Jersey Orthotics division. So that's when I actually started working remote. So I've been working remote for the last 8 years or so of my career, which was a big deal. 8 years ago, that wasn't as common. Now it really is with the pandemic. And I did travel quite a bit, which was really exciting. So I did project management across the United States for a little while. And then we had the opportunity to move back to Texas, which I miss Texas. Our heart was in Texas. So we moved back to San Antonio, and I still continue to work remote with our New Jersey office to this day. But part of that move came a very big career move for me. Again, I had a manager that really knew me probably better than I knew myself. And during a big reorg, moved me into upstream marketing. So I went from being a scientist in a lab to project management to marketing, which I had never seen as a career path for myself. But he said, trust me, give it 6 months. It's going to be a great position for you. You get to work with the engineers, you get to work with the surgeons. It was a really, really great move for me. And I spent 7 years there. So something that I actually didn't think was going to be on my path ended up being probably one of the most beneficial portions of my career to date. I absolutely loved being in marketing, but our joint replacement orthopedics group had really been developing their project management and program manager function. We had a lot of them. There was an opportunity to move back into that and manage that team. So that's where I am and have been for almost 2 years. And I absolutely love it because now I get to develop and mentor and grow our program managers doing new product development on hips and knee products. And a lot of them have technical backgrounds, and it's just really great to see their career progression and be able to help influence that. So that's a little bit about how I got here.
So for me, my career path was a little bit more straightforward. So in high school, I had a lot of pressure on me just from family members, friends, trying to make me decide what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. So I Googled healthcare professions and I stumbled across prosthetics and orthotics as a job. And I thought it sounded really cool. So my parents were really awesome and they encouraged me to reach out to our local clinic, which is where I now work, to kind of shadow and see what it was all about. So I did that in high school and I decided I thought it was pretty cool. I ended up going to college for engineering because I thought it was a great plan if I ever changed my mind. There's 1,000,001 careers you can do with an engineering degree. So I went to UT for that. Kind of by the end, my senior year in college, I was kind of wavering back and forth if I wanted to do the master's for prosthetics or if I wanted to just go into industry and do like a medical device company. But in the end, I decided I did want to do the master's and kind of stick with my original plans. So went to UT Southwestern, super small class size, only 16 people. We started in May 2020, which was, as we know, the pandemic. So we had to jump through all those big hoops with learning in a classroom with 16 other people and masks and face shields and everything. But it was a really fun experience and we all became really good friends. And now they're all across the country doing the same thing that I do, which is cool. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I am today. I'm kind of just starting out on my path. Once you graduate with your master's, you have to do 2 years of residency. So I just finished up my first year and I took a bunch of exams. So I actually just got certified as an orthotist. And for those who don't know, Orthotics is bracing. So everything I do is external. I'm not talking about like knee implants or anything like that. Everything we do is like prosthetics you see amputees wearing, or braces that you see maybe like someone who had a stroke wearing to pick up their foot so it doesn't drag on the ground, scoliosis braces, the cranial helmets you might see a baby wear, all those good things. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. So, yeah.
All right. So for me, back when I was in high school, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to be. I knew I just needed to pick a major and go to college. So I ended up just kind of picking engineering, kind of knowing that I was kind of good with math and science and lots of opportunities, and I'd figure it out as I went. I picked biomedical engineering, I think really just because it sounded cool, sounded most exciting. As I kind of made my way through college and kind of learned more what I didn't want to do, I didn't necessarily want to be a scientist. I didn't want to be PhD like researcher. I kind of learned some of what I didn't want to do first. But then I got the opportunity to do an internship with GE Healthcare in one of the summers while I was in college. And so that really started me down that path. I learned, as an intern at GE Healthcare, the engineers can go down a technical path, but they can also end up within like a large med tech company in all sorts of different roles. Like you could end up in quality, in manufacturing, in purchasing. You need technical people kind of across the org, just because the product is so technical compared to other industries. So that got me all excited, learning about the technology, about the cool things that it does, and just how prevalent, medical technology is. If you don't know, GE Healthcare makes CTs, X-rays, MRIs, ultrasounds. They also make some monitoring devices, anesthesia machines, pretty much every medical machine you can think of, they make. So I had that internship, and that's really got me started there. GE Healthcare does a leadership program for people that are coming straight out of college, and so I got to do that. It's like a 2-year program where you do 6-month rotations in different positions. You get to kind of, again, see more of the organization and try different things out. And so my program was focused around actually supply chain and manufacturing. So I did 4 different roles initially in supply chain and manufacturing. So that's where I got my start. Probably less traditional. We're all engineers. Everybody that kind of does that program is engineers, but we were less technical, focused on manufacturing pieces. So after that program, and that program, we moved around a little bit. We were based in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's where the headquarters are. And I did a rotation in Madison and Chicago, so they've got a few different sites up there. But then once I was done with that program, I took a role within manufacturing or supply chain, actually. Skipping ahead. A global role, I got to be part of kind of our global supply chain team for our monitoring solutions business. So I got experience, I was on conference calls with people across the globe. I was learning about manufacturing facilities as well as our forecasting team. How do we forecast the products that we're going to sell? And kind of that whole, we call it product planning, S&OP for any of my other, and Stryker probably do this similar stuff, but supply chain planning. And then after doing that for just a few years, I actually went and worked within an actual manufacturing facility, managing a team, hourly employees that report to me. So I got to kind of flex that leadership skill. I did that for a few years, and then I wanted to move back to Texas. So I'd been up in Wisconsin for a good 6 years. I was tired of the winter. So I was trying to figure out what can I do to move to Texas. And I ended up making a connection with somebody somebody who had a job posted in our service organization. So I came to understand better the service world. So medical devices that are out there at hospitals, they break down. They need preventative maintenance. They need corrective repairs. They need all sorts of stuff. They're out there and you need to be able to repair them. And so there's a whole org, a very big part of our organization is service, and all between the people that actually go out and turn wrenches and fix machines. And then there's also a whole lot of support people that then support those engineers in the field. So I moved into kind of service operations. And so I got to work remotely. So that was in 2015. So another kind of early adopter, so to speak, of the work from home. Our service organization is all across the US. And so, you know, there's people in the field and then plenty of people that work from home. So I got to do that. I was in service from 2015 through last year, so 2022. So 7 years in service in a couple, kind of two different roles. Really just service operations. Specifically, to get into a little bit of details, is the accessories that go with our medical equipment. It really kind of segued me into my current role. I'm a product manager for accessories. So for our big MRI system that we sell to a customer, there's additional kind of smaller devices that a hospital would need to actually scan their patients. And a lot of those devices we don't make, but we will, for a customer, we will sell them those devices and we'll actually facilitate their service so that they can have we call it the whole solution, so that they've got everything that they need, again, to scan patients. So yeah, so now I'm a product manager. So that means I manage my portfolio of accessories, decide what's in it, what are we going to sell, what are we going to offer, as well as kind of managing some of the technical aspects of when things change, how do we manage those? So that's me.
Well, I think we've got a great panel before us because, I mean, this just goes to illustrate, your three stories go to illustrate the breadth and depth that a career in STEM can encompass. And this is just, we've got mostly engineering represented here, but imagine what else you can do in the other areas of STEM. So let's go ahead and move into our next question and spend the next 5 minutes or so. Is there a specific project or product that you've worked on in the past that you particularly enjoyed and you think could give us a glimpse into your day-to-day STEM work world?
All right, I'll go first again. Okay, so STEM work world, I would say probably the favorite project that I worked on would go back to my days at KCI with advanced wound care. So it's a negative pressure wounds, basically essentially a vacuum for really big wounds, which is really interesting. And a lot of it uses like the wound interface. It almost looks like a sponge. It's really strange. So it's like a spongy, like a plastic spongy kind of thing that they put in these really big wounds and then pull a vacuum through and pull wound fluids that helps the tissue regenerate. One of my favorite programs was looking at different coatings for those particular dressings to like reduce the antioxidant or reduce oxidation. So adding antioxidants, and then there were other enzymes that develop in wounds that keep it from healing. So I spent a lot of time in the lab doing these coating research, and then as part of that, I learned to use a scanning electron microscope, which is by far my favorite art that I have ever created, was when I got to make scanning electron microscopy pictures, because it's very cool to look at everything on a microscopic level. So I absolutely loved doing that. And a lot of it was just, you know, the day-to-day and trial and error and going in and, you know, testing things. And that part of it was really fun, and working with other engineers and coming up with other ideas, because it's so very different than what you do in college. You know, it's just very different, and it is just so collaborative and really fabulous working with really engaged, brilliant people to come up with new ideas and do things. So that was definitely one of my favorite projects to work on. Now I just love managing people that are brilliant. So it's just fun. It's being in science in engineering, you just are surrounded by really brilliant people. I mean, I'm sure people in other degrees feel the same way in some fashion, but it's really special being in a science field, and especially in medical technology, because everyone feels like they're making a difference in the world in whichever way you're contributing to medical technology. So that's my favorite.
So to kind of give what like a normal day-to-day on my job looks like, we are constantly moving around doing different things. So I actually see patients every day. Right now, I see majority prosthetic patients because I'm in my prosthetic residency. So we could see probably around 5 people a day that come in for follow-ups. They might come in for an initial eval and we cast their leg to begin making the prosthesis. They could come in for a delivery where they're actually taking it home that day and getting them set up with a physical therapist. So we could be doing that. I also do a lot of technical working with my hands stuff. So we actually custom make all these devices in our office. So from the cast that we take of the patient, we fill it up with plaster. So we have a mold of their leg, and then we use different techniques to shape the plaster. So a little bit of art. And then we end up making the final device over that. So I could also be doing that at any time, kind of between patients. And then, of course, the paperwork side of everything, writing notes like your doctor does, submitting things to insurance, waiting for authorizations. And then I could also get called to the hospital anytime to fit emergency braces at the hospital. So for example, if someone fell out of a tree and broke their back, they might call me to bring a back brace in and come fit it to them. So I actually had one of those this morning. So it really can happen at any time. So kind of day to day is something new, which is something that I really like about this job. I'm not just sitting at a desk, meeting a lot of cool people with unique stories every day. So that's something that I really like about my job.
All right. So I'll share just something that happened that's been recent in this job that, was something I thought was pretty cool, good use of my skills. So as a product manager, I have to manage, like I mentioned, the changes that come through with my products. For MR, I have patient music systems. So if you're familiar with an MR is very loud. You lay on a table and you go through a big kind of donut shaped thing. And when you get an MRI scan, it's super, super loud. And so we sell a music system that has patient headphones, like big, big earphones to protect the patient's hearing. And also it provides music to help them relax and not have to hear the sound of the MRI. So they're a very important accessory for us. And we were dealing with the fact that the headphones that are kind of custom made to be able to go into the MRI and not impact the image. So if a patient is going through, you need to make sure that your headphones aren't going to show up in your image anywhere and cause you to misdiagnose them. So the headphones come, they've got like a cord. These headphones had to be kind of custom made. Like they take some headphones and my supplier like modifies them to make them appropriate for the MRI. But as you can maybe imagine, with supply chain challenges, the headphones that they were buying became end of production. They no longer made them. Their supplier said, nope, I'm not going to make those anymore. And so they were really struggling to figure out how they could make a new one, again, that they can buy enough of and that they can modify it and make it appropriate for the MR. And so there's a lot of, the supplier owns the design, but they don't have an MRI machine, so to speak. So they have to work with our engineering team. Our engineering team has to approve their device. Because this particular device is on a patient, it's it's on the patient when they're getting scanned. It has the potential to interfere, with patient safety as well as imaging quality. So there was kind of a lot going on. And as a product manager, I'm kind of the owner of the product, and I have to make sure that my product is available. My sales team, needs to be able to sell this product. We kind of got down to the wire of things happening that was really critical that we were, didn't have product available and we needed to finish up. So I was having kind of regular meetings with engineers, really getting into some of the technical details of what are you concerned about? Like what specifically is the biggest risk? Like what, should the supplier be working on? Like how do we, have a good product, but also how do we not stall too long, like trying to be too conservative? Something I've learned working with engineers, a lot of them are very risk averse. They're very conservative. They want it to be the absolute perfect, and sometimes it's hard to get there. So it's kind of coaching the engineers a little bit, like what's the biggest risk, like what's really important, and what can we talk about justify, like what can you actually write a document and justify your findings. So that was kind of a good, I think, use of my skills, and kind of shows kind of what I do as a product manager, kind of working through that situation. So it ended up being a good situation. We got things resolved and everything's shipping now, and things are good. So
Those are all very cool, very different projects, very different areas of medical technology. So we also want to remind people, Emily just put it in the chat, but to put your questions in the Q&A section so that we can get your questions answered in this next section. But we'll go ahead and answer. Let's see, someone asks, how difficult was it to receive these degrees? I would imagine particularly difficult, but.
All right, I'll go first. So I didn't really talk to the whole high school, what led me to applied biology and biochemical engineering. So I think I always knew that I wanted to, actually when I was 8, I told my mom I wanted to do something with blood. That seems like a very strange thing to say, but I'm kind of somewhere on track, but I always knew I wanted to go in the medical field. And there were times when I thought I wanted to do, maybe go and be a doctor. And then there was a portion of time where I wanted to be a veterinarian whenever I was in college, but I knew either way I wanted a basis in biology, engineering, somewhere in there. And Rose-Hulman was actually pretty close to home, and it was a really great school. The program looked really interesting to me. They always say, and I would say the most engineering programs, the first 2 years are definitely the hardest. Like you spend a lot of time in your science and math, and you really have to buckle down, and you really have to focus and do what you need to do. But by your junior and senior year, you get to really focus on the particular disciplines that are really the most interesting to you. So if you make it through your sophomore year, the weeding out year, I guess they say, then you're solid and you're looking really good. So it's definitely tough. From a master's perspective, because I went back after being in industry for a few years, and that program was actually geared towards professionals and working professionals. It was fabulous. It was, again, just working with really brilliant people that had been in industry. So that, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was much easier. It was much easier than, but all of it was very worth it. So put your time in the first couple years, and just know that you listen to the three of us. We have all completely different paths, and you can stay technical. You can go into management. There are so many things you can do with a science and engineering degree. It's very worth it.
I'll just say too, of course, any coursework that you take, I think in any major, is going to be challenging, especially just when you move into college at a college level. The classes just get harder. But we're all three good examples of people that have done it. So if we can do it, you can do it too. You just kind of got to put your mind to it and get after it.
I will add one more thing. Don't be surprised if your grades look very different your first year of college than they did in high school. So and don't be too hard on yourself. It's hard, and you're making it, you're doing it. So pass your classes and you will have a good job afterwards. So that's another note to everyone out there, because I went through that my first year, and it's very emotionally tough. That's a hard part. If you're used to making really great grades in high school and your first semester they're not so great, take it easy on yourself. It's okay. It's much harder. And it's just a new environment.
I saw someone asked, how did UT Austin prepare and aid you for your engineering degree? I think that UT specifically does a really good job setting you up for solving problems. So, of course, my job now is not the technical math and science that I was doing in school. I'm not using my mechatronics knowledge every day. I'm not doing my heat transfer knowledge every day. But it did set me up to solve the problems in a strategic manner at my job that I have now. And I think that's very unique to UT. My boyfriend went to A&M and very great school, very good engineering school, and he did mechanical engineering as well, but our curriculums were very different. So I think that UT just does a really good job of setting you up for whatever career you have to solve the problems that you're going to need to solve.
So when it comes to internships and shadowing and things like that, we've got 2 questions addressing those, so we can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Do you have any advice for finding them, or for people who are just interested in doing them in general? And any idea of what the requirements for those are?
See, I can take that one, at least from my experience. I guess my biggest advice is to talk to as many people as possible, even people that you might not think be able to help you. Like if you're like, I want an internship, because that's where I was at. I learned what I didn't like to do, and I was kind of like, okay, I need an industry internship. So I started just talking around. I ended up talking to just different advisors and professors, like, and even anybody that you can think of, even if you don't know if they can help you. Because what turned out to work is I talked to an advisor, and he actually was able to like make a connection for me to like a recruiter that was like down on campus for something else, and kind of got me an interview kind of informally. Like to be honest, I didn't go through the formal process to like get an interview, but it's because I let somebody know, hey, I'm looking for an internship. Do you know anybody I can talk to? So, and that's honestly, that's kind of how it works in the real life too. It's you let people know you're interested, and even if you don't know if they can help you. So yeah, and just being open to different things. I think at the time I was pretty open. I just wanted an internship at a company. Like, I ended up going up to Wisconsin. Like, I don't know that was ideally what I wanted at the time. I'm in Texas, I'm in Austin. I would have, of course, loved to stay in Austin, but I was open to going to a city I'd never been to, and it ended up being great. So kind of keep an open mind, talk to lots of people. That's kind of my advice.
Yeah, I agree with what Erin said. So I started as an intern, and then we actually had a co-op program, which meant that I worked half the year and went to school half the year. So it took me 5 years to get through college. But it was kind of very similar. It was Rose-Hulman actually had a really good career fair, which most people I think for just graduating seniors. I recommend that you go to a career fair even as a freshman. With your resume, if you've done weighted tables in school, if you've done anything that's job related at all in school that shows that you're, responsible, which is also something I would highly recommend in high school. If you can get a job, like just get a job of some sort, because it actually helps you when you're in college too, just dealing with people. And you have something on your resume, even as a freshman. So this is what I want. Go to the career fairs, hand out your resume whenever you're, halfway through. It doesn't even matter. Just make those connections, talk to people. LinkedIn is a great resource now. So make your LinkedIn profile look for people that graduated from UT that, or wherever you're at locally, and just find random people and send them a message if you can and ask them. And don't be afraid to ask for what you want and send your resume, and somebody's going to connect you with someone. So that's the biggest one, is just be proactive about it early, and be open, and move to a different state. Those are big ones. I love that.
Yes, try something new.
Try
Definitely.
something new.
Yeah. Clayton, do you have something to add there?
I was just gonna say to don't get discouraged if everyone around you seems to be getting like their dream internship. I know that was really tough for me when I was just gonna go straight into a master's program. I didn't have your stereotypical engineering internship over the summer because I was taking a bunch of prerequisites to get into my program. And it's hard to have people be like, oh, I'm gonna go work for all these crazy companies and make all this money. So just don't get discouraged if it's not happening for you right away. If you're putting in the work and you're making the connections and you're networking, you will find something.
And I think we have time for one last question. Let's see. What types of companies can a biomedical engineer work at? If you have any examples.
All of them. Any look at you know.
I say just Google medtech companies, like
Yes,
biggest
medtech companies.
medtech companies in the
It's
US.
Johnson & Johnson, Stryker, Medtronic, anything that's in your medicine cabinet that has a name on it, Google it and look on their career. Like that's how you can find some internships too. So it's really interesting. There's just so many companies. Also just being in Austin and others, there's really small companies. So Google the heck out of it and just find and send it out there. There's just so many that you can do from
Nowadays you can
Band-Aids
start following companies on
Yeah.
LinkedIn and Facebook, and they show you what they're about. Like so much easier now, I think, to find out
I
about these
know.
companies.
So good. Yeah.
You could probably also, if you're in college, probably also talk to your professors and find
Mhm.
out if they have any former students that are working in any particular companies, or when they worked in industry themselves and got
Mhm.
experience, what their routes looked like and who they talked to get those internships and shadowing experiences as well. So let's see here. So actually, I want to squeeze in one last question here. Just as far as what the track looks like to actually get to where you lovely women are today, is it a track in biomedical engineering and then a master's, or do you get an MBA specifically? Do you recommend doing that? This person looks like they're particularly interested in the management side of all of this. And then they ask, or do you go through and get an MD, or what does that look like?
I think it's whatever you want. I mean, I don't have a master's, so I don't have an MBA or a master's. I've been able to progress my career with just a bachelor's in engineering. So
And you can. I think engineering and science is probably one of the ones where you really can make, even going in the management track. I have a lot of fellow managers and directors that just have a bachelor's. So getting that master's is really just a preference. Is there something else you want to learn about? If you really wanted to get into the financial side, then an MBA would be potentially, where you wanted to go. Like if you really wanted to specialize in like corporate finance or something and really kind of change your focus. I decided on the engineering management program at UT because it was actually a joint program between the engineering school and the MBA program. So half of our courses were from the MBA school, like negotiations and intro to marketing and corporate finance. But the rest of them were project management and contracts and things that you deal more with on, the management side of engineering. And I thought it was a great program, but I'm a learner. So like just going back to school seems like the thing that I wanted to do, more so for me than advancing my career. So to what Erin said, it's really completely up to you.
If you want to do kind of more seeing patients and what I'm doing, you do have to get the master's. So it was only 18 months, which isn't a lot of time. So it goes by really fast. So if you're worried about that and costs and stuff, I feel like it's very doable.
Well, there you go. So unfortunately, we've reached the end of our webinar. I know I could ask you all questions for days, but there are some other questions left in the Q&A. So I want to encourage those that have any further questions to reach out to our panelists as well. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you, but we have reached the end of our webinar, and we hope that you've learned a lot from these fabulous panelists and about their STEM pathways and their particular journeys. And we want you to keep exploring. So keep doing that, keep attending these webinars, keep learning from new people. Like was mentioned earlier, keep asking questions and talking to all kinds of people. We'll add the links that we mentioned earlier to the chat again for you, our website, particularly for women in STEM at UT, and then the FabFems directory, where you can find other mentors and people to reach out to, and then our YouTube channel, of course, where you can find this recording. But thank you again to everybody for attending, and thank you again, immensely thank you to our wonderful panelists, and we look forward to seeing everybody next week for our next FabFems webinar, which is on environmental sustainability. Interesting topic there. So watch your email and check our social media for all those links and details. But thank you again, and everybody have a great weekend.